The Last Drive-In, 24-hour Joe Bob Briggs marathon of horror, only on Shudder. One weekend only. If you miss this, you're going to always regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. That's actually from Casablanca. We will not be showing that.
Next, a Dusk to Dawn to Dusk marathon with Joe Bob Briggs. It's The Last Drive-In on Shudder.
In 1956, there were 12,000 drive-ins in America. 95% of those are dead. And yet there are native Indians, the Crankaway Indians of Texas, who believe there is a spirit that lives on in these decayed temples where Americans once worshipped. They call it Wiskavanaha, or the spirit of blood, breast, and beasts, or the 3 Bs. What you are about to witness is a summoning of that spirit, a return to a part of the American heritage that has all but vanished. It's a heritage of drive-in movies, controversial movies, groundbreaking movies, the weird, the offbeat, the strange.
Y'all ever seen The Beast Within? 1982, that's the one about the woman in Mississippi who gets raped by a giant cicada, what we used to call a katydid. So this woman gets katydiddled, and then 17 years later, her mutant son starts chewing up fat guys in spaghetti-strapped t-shirts and sucking blood and eating guys named Kerwin. He's kind of a combination vampire, zombie, katydid. Interesting plot point, he only eats guys named Kerwin. But anyway, Paul Clemens was the actor who played the tortured high school student with insect issues. So, giant carnivorous katydid zombies only come to life every 17 years. This is a scientific fact. You can go to Nat Geo, verify that. So you want to know the spooky thing? Every 17 years, I start a new show. I have katydid DNA. All right, I forgot. I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and we're starting a 9,000-hour horror movie marathon that's sort of based on being similar to the show I did on TNT 17 years ago, and then the show I did on the movie channel 17 years before that. So if you're new to Shudder, you may not know that I've actually been doing various types of movie hosting shows. All right, I've been doing the exact same show for 17 jillion years. We just change the name of it when the network changes. And of course, this is not a real network. It's a digital internet dealie with streaming menus and stuff you can watch on your phone. And let me stop right there for a minute, because, you know, I agree with David Lynch. Did you ever see that interview that David Lynch gave at the USA Film Festival a few years back? You can get it on YouTube. You know, David is a Zen master or some such thing. He knows the Maharishi Mahesh Mahalia Jackson. And he was asked about digital. And he started out real mellow. And he said, motion pictures are not intended to be watched on your fucking phone. It was, that was kind of the only time that Dave went off the deep end. He can't really bear to think about the severed ear and Blue Velvet being experienced on a flip phone while you're scarfing a burrito or something. But you know, it's 2018. We have to admit the times are out of joint, as Shakespeare once said. And actually, that's another thing that burns my bacon. You actually cannot quote Shakespeare. People say that all the time. Shakespeare said this, Shakespeare said that. You can only quote a character in Shakespeare. So it was Hamlet that said, the times are out of joint. He said it to Horatio or the Ghost. I don't remember who he said it to. I need to go back and check that. Anyhow, He said it to indicate he was living in weird times in Denmark. And in Denmark, they eat raw fish on a cracker and warm beer for breakfast. So he was saying it was weird times even by Denmark standards. Which brings me to why we're doing this whole thing. The network asked me to do this, and when they first came to me, I said the same thing I've been saying for 17 years, which is the network canceled me, so now the people must suffer. But then y'all begged, and as some of you know, it had a profound effect on me. I can't stand to see a grown man beg. And also, even though I would never do anything that violates my personal and professional principles, I would do anything for $200. So a deal was made, and the basic idea was that the nation is in the mood for horror. We proved that by having the first all-horror election with horror icons nominated by both parties and a reenactment of Night of the Living Dead virtually every day since then, complete with actual dead people serving in the cabinet. So they finally appealed to my patriotism. I needed to serve my country and explain what the holy heck is going on. And as you know, we do that through the medium of movies. So I'm going to do it one last time. I actually made that vow back in the 90s one last time when Showtime had me hosting that damn Emmanuel marathon. You know, we had both the double M Emmanuel movies and the single M fake Emmanuel movies, and I said, okay, one last time, because there's only so much softcore lesbo hippie porn with Vaseline smeared on the camera lens before you go, whoa, this is going to make my penis fall off. I can't do this forever. But my point is, I survived the 80s hosting every movie that Showtime Networks bought at the Cannes Film Market and the Milan Film Market and the rural upstate New York Film Market that they would bring home, and they would say, hey, what is this movie? I didn't buy this movie. Did you buy this movie? What's a West German sex comedy? And so I hosted all those. It's stuff like She's 19 and Ready, which she was 45 and she was never going to be ready, and you didn't really want her to be ready. But anyhow, that's how far back I go. I actually remember the now vanished genre called the West German sex comedy, and I embraced it, because that's what we do here. We embrace movies. I didn't actually embrace that German skank in the movie. I was being metaphorical. So after you begged, I said, okay, I'll do one weekend, dusk to dawn, to dusk, to almost dawn, because we're going 24 hours plus a little extra, and we've got, how many movies have we got? We've got like 97 movies, and we're not going to announce the titles until we show them, so it'll be a surprise. And we're actually going to interrupt the movies, just like back in the old days, commercial breaks, only they're not commercials, they're Shudder breaks, or Joe Bob breaks. And if that annoys you, and I can't imagine that it wouldn't, it would annoy the hell out of me, then you can watch these same movies on Shudder without looking at me or listening to me, but this is how we did it before, and so by God, we're going to continue to do it the pitiful way. And then throughout today and tomorrow, we're going to have all the usual stuff. Guests will be dropping in. Some of them are half-ass famous. We have male girls. In fact, if you want to keep up with what's on, what's coming on, what might be on, if we don't forget to spool it up, you can go to the official Joe Bob's Last Drive-In Horror Marathon Male Girl Twitter feed, and the male girl will take your requests as long as they're legal in any country besides Thailand. And that's actually the only way to keep up other than just to watch the dang show. And one more thing before I introduce our kickoff movie, which is Tourist Trap from 1979. Any Tourist Trap fans here? We're starting with Tourist Trap, see, because we want to impress you with just how serious we are about this stuff. Because if you ask a horror fan to name his favorite movies of 1979, he might say Amityville Horror, he might say Alien, he might say Salem's Lot, but he probably will not say Tourist Trap. But Tourist Trap was the first real 80s slasher. Even though it came out in the 70s, it was pre-80s. It was ahead of its time. Even has Tanya Roberts in it, and that's about as 80s as it gets. And by the way, what is it with 80s nostalgia? I was there in the 80s. There was a whole lot of crapola in the 80s. Is it the big hair? They like the big hair, don't they? Big hair. We used to call that state fair hair in Texas. Big boobs, big hair on the guys too, hair bands, all about the hair. Anyhow, the other thing you need to know is that as usual, whenever I do a marathon, we're going to be printing up some I Spent the Night with Joe Bob t-shirts, which we will explain later. And By the way, if you're gay, bisexual, multisexual, transsexual, trisexual, quattrosexual, or you live at Warren Jeff's house, you can still wear the I Spent the Night with Joe Bob t-shirt, and I will embrace you and embrace your diversity. I will not literally embrace you. Or maybe I will, you know. And you can use any restroom here in the trailer house. There's only one bathroom, actually. So we're already transgender friendly. See, we're ahead of the game. Okay, let's get to it. Tourist trap. This is the old story of the road trippers who have car trouble and they have to pull into a broken down roadside attraction cowboy wax museum run by Chuck Connors and his bipolar brother who likes to put a little extra juice in the mannequins. In my opinion, one of the most underrated flicks of all time. I think maybe possibly because of the title. It sounds like Parent Trap, which was that stupid Haley Mills movie made by Disney, and then because they can't just leave it alone, remade by Disney as an even incredibly stupider movie starring Lindsay Lohan. So if you loved Parent Trap, you're going to hate this movie, which goes in such odd directions that I don't really want to summarize the plot since we're likely to have some first-timers with us tonight. So let's just do those drive-in totals and get this clown show started. We have 6 dead bodies, no breasts, automatic 1/2 star deduction for that. 1 dead Jeep, zombie mannequins, vicious attack dolls, crockery smashing, arm ripping, bimbo dunking, psychopathic cross-dressing, random telekinesis by a guy who can't spell telekinesis, iron rod through the back, ball peen hammer fight, mannequin dog pile, armed and dangerous animatronics, designer scarf strangling, excessive window crashing, excellent weirdo musical score by the great Pino Donaggio, axe to the neck, multiple bimbos in hot pants and cut-off shorts, gratuitous Dr. Pepper dispensing, heads roll, arms roll, legs roll, eyeballs roll, crowbar foo, shotgun foo, tomahawk foo, creepy mumbling on the soundtrack. Drive-In Academy Award nominations for Chuck Connors as the old coot owner of Slosson's Lost Oasis Western Museum, who carries a rifle and says things like, Davy Crockett and General Custer didn't get along, so I had to separate them. And I wanted to keep my wife alive forever. That's the whole purpose of wax museums. Tanya Roberts as Becky for being chained up for half the movie. Jocelyn Jones as Molly the Good Girl for saying, what are you going to do to me? When it's obvious what he's going to do to her. Robin Sherwood as the Snoopy brunette who says, who needs a bathing suit? Don Jeffrey as Tina for getting waxed alive and for saying, he's going to kill us. We're all going to die because yes, Tina, yes, you are. 3.5 stars. Joe Bob says check it out, and we will be checking in at various points during the movie to get ridiculously super nerdy on horror. So hang in there with us. You got nothing to do the next 24 hours, right? Right?